Hi, it's Sam from Intrinsic Dev. In this video I want to take you through setting up our Lode Audio Driver for Elan. Before we actually get into the driver, you'll want to set up the Lode Audio Player itself, and to do that open a web browser, put the IP address of the Lode Audio Player into the web browser, and you'll load up a page that looks something like this. This is the status page for the Lode Player. If you go over to the Media tab, you'll be able to add in music services. You can see here I've already got some selected. I've got TuneIn, Spotify, Tidal, Deezer and Pandora, and then favorites is anything that you've stored as a favorite inside Lode itself. To add in a new service, all you do is go to the available service, click add, and it'll ask you your login credentials, and then it'll add that service to the Lode Player. Under the advanced tab, there's one setting we need to change. We want to enable image caching. Hit the tick box for image caching and hit update, and that'll enable that on the player. That provides us correct resolution graphics for the Elan G interface, meaning the interface loads faster and it's not having to scale anything, which is very handy. The Lode Player does that. Once you've done those settings, head over into Elan. In Elan, go to the Media tab, go to Sources, right-click Sources, add new generic media source. I can see my Lode Audio Drivers in the list. If it wasn't, I would use the Search Folder button to go and find it. Just going to click OK. Once the driver is installed, it'll automatically license itself from our website. Just give it a few seconds. There we go. Now for each player on your Lode Audio device, you'll need to load one driver. So what I mean by that is for the LA2, you'll load 2 of these drivers, 1 for each output, and for the LA4, you'll load 4 of these drivers, 1 for each output. The driver needs the IP address of the load unit, and then it needs the player name of the load device. So to explain that better, I'm just going to jump back into the web interface here. And if I go to player settings, we can see here that we've got an LA4, and player 1 is called player 1, or zone 1 is called player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4. You shouldn't need to change these unless you're using more than one Lode Audio unit. When you have 2 Lode Audio units on the one network, you will need to rename the players of at least one of the units. You can't have 2 player 1s, 2 player 2s, etc. But there's also, by the same notion, there's no point in renaming a zone for the sake of it, because these zones are not exposed to the end user. So there's no point in calling them living room or bedroom. If they're going to go through Elan G, you can do all the renaming at the Elan end. So for this example, I'm just going to leave them player 1 to player 4. So the driver automatically is populated with player 1. That's correct. That's just the default in the driver. If you were putting it in for other units, you change the player 1 to 2 or 3 or 4, or change the name out completely if you have renamed them. I'm going to put the IP address into the driver and click apply. There's a couple other settings in the driver here. There is a jump to root after selection. So what that means is when we're navigating content through Elan, once we actually make a playback request, that drop down would override the driver, and whenever you hit play, it would jump you back to the root menu of the Elan interface. Some people prefer that after you've selected something, you just get taken back to the main menu so you can start your next selection again from there. The other thing in the driver is the clear Elan favorites. So I should explain that. Anytime you add a favorite to the load system through the Elan interface, it also adds it to the Elan favorites, and Elan favorites are event mappable. So you can recall them on an event map as and where you want. Gives you good flexibility over using the audio player as some sort of announcement device, or if there is a scenario that you want to play a certain piece of music in, just simply add that piece of music with the track or the playlist or the radio station to the favorites through Elan, and then you can recall that via an event map. The clear Elan favorites button actually just clears out all the Elan favorites and allows you to start again. It should be pointed out, favorites are removed from the Elan favorites if you delete the favorite through the Elan interface. If you add or remove anything directly from the Lode interface, they are simply stored on Lode Audio only. But when you add or remove them through the Elan interface, they're stored on both Lode and Elan. So that's our driver installed. You can see there the status is okay, that's licensed, we've got our player name in, we've got our IP address. I'm just going to go to zones. I'm going to add in a generic single zone controller just so I can get this display on the interface. Add that, and I'm just going to put it in as a source device. So we'll just go over to viewer, go to media, we've got our Lode Audio Player. We've got some metadata of what's currently playing. You'll notice that we actually have track progress here as well. So if I start that playing, we should see the track progress begin to move, which we are. So let's start with Deezer. I'm just going to go in and flick through just to show some of the navigation off. So into charts, into top artists. Let's go to the weekend. You can see there we've got cover art as well. We can start playing the radio, or we can go into similar artists, get another list again. That's actually going to start a track. There we go, track's changed over. It's worth noting the metadata is 1 to 2 seconds behind the actual track change. Once you've hit play here, the Lode Audio unit is exceptionally quick to change content. So let's go over and try another service. Very popular US service is Pandora, so let's go into Pandora. Pandora is mainly focused around your music as opposed to providing you suggestions. So I'll go into, what have I got here? Let's go into stations, and it's made some stations free based on what I'm listening to. Let's go into Daft Punk Radio, hit play. There we go, we've got playback from Pandora. Favorites has my flow, has some local radio stations. I'll just show how favorites work. So if I go into, let's just again do another radio station. Go into local radio, there's BBC Radio 1. Add to favorites. I can then start playing it if I wish as well. I go back out, go to favorites, and now BBC Radio is in my favorites. I can then remove it. You can see that the favorites menu has refreshed to reflect that. So let's try title. We just go into genre. What I'm selecting is not a reflection of what I listen to. I'm just clicking buttons. So let's play that. You notice there that's an album, that it's giving me the option to both either play the entire album with the direction arrow, or the actual full arrow gives me the option to navigate down into that album. There you go, there's the contents of the album. I'd already clicked to play the whole album, so you can see there the cover art's now in the background. So if I go back to the main page, we can see what track we're on, and we can see that track position. If we jump into the queue, we can see what's currently in the queue. If I want to change my track I'm listening to, I can just select another track from the queue, and there we go, it's jumped over, and it's now playing that track. There's a search function on top of all of that, so if I go in here, we get presented with the different searches from the different services. We've opted to do it that way. Lode actually does a global search, so if you're using the Lode app, it has one search that searches all of these categories, which is quite nice, but it really takes the Lode app to be able to navigate that response properly. For this driver, what we decided to do was just pull out the actual searches, so you can go in and search directly what you want. So if I go straight to, say, Deezer artist, and I put in an artist, very obscure one, there we go. I can find their albums, and then I can play that whole album, and that's how the search works. And there we go, started playing. There is then shuffle and repeat options on the transport bar. And of course, you see at the top, it's telling you what we're currently playing, and it's got the logo for the service it's playing it from. So that's the Lode Audio Player. If any of you have done an Elan training course for themselves, you'll know how highly we recommend these players. They do work incredibly well. They're one of the best featured players we've ever come across, and we do recommend them. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.